Have you ever wondered what happens when a policy's big promises run headfirst into reality? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into our source material to explore that very gap. And we're looking at two huge fronts, a trade war and a high-stakes diplomatic summit.
Now, that's a pretty provocative statement, and it comes straight from one of our sources. It really sets the stage for a critical look at how these policies reportedly played out on the ground.
So what we've got here is really a tale of two fronts. On one hand, a trade war that was launched to fix a deficit, and on the other, a diplomatic gamble designed to land, in their words, a great deal.
And this gets to the heart of what we're tackling today. When these really ambitious goals meet the messy, complicated reality of the global stage, what happens next?
All right, first up, let's dive into the economic scoreboard. The administration's stated goal was pretty simple and definitely ambitious: fix the U.S. trade deficit.
But here's the thing. The immediate result, at least according to hedge fund manager Spencer Hakimian, was, well, the exact opposite. As he put it, U.S. exports didn't just dip, they fell right off a cliff.
So our sources lay out this kind of swift domino effect. In response to U.S. tariffs, countries reportedly began boycotting American goods. This is what caused that plunge in exports, which then shrank the market and, kind of ironically, ended up worsening the very trade deficit the whole policy was meant to fix in the first place.
I mean, just take a look at one of America's closest trading partners, Canada. A survey highlighted in one source found that a staggering 71% of Canadians were planning to buy fewer American food products. That's a direct economic shot across the bow in response to U.S. tariffs.
And this wasn't just isolated to Canada. Oh no, the backlash reportedly spread all the way to Europe. One central bank survey found that 44% of consumers were actively avoiding American products. And this wasn't just a feeling people had, it had a real-world impact. One source pointed to a nearly 28% drop in Tesla's European sales.
$12 billion. Now, what does this number represent? It's not about goods or tariffs. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, this is the estimated revenue the U.S. lost just from canceled international trips, a huge hit to hotels, restaurants, and airlines.
Okay, so that's the economic side. Now let's pivot and see if this same kind of pattern pops up on the diplomatic front. The goal here was, again, a self-proclaimed great deal, which was supposed to be hashed out at a summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska.
Now, to really get what happens next, you have to understand the huge difference between these two terms. A ceasefire, as the source explains, means an immediate stop to the fighting. Simple. But a peace deal, which was reportedly Putin's preference, would allow the bombing and land grabs to keep going while everyone was sitting at the negotiating table. They're worlds apart.
So publicly, the summit was framed as a massive win. The official story was that it was a great, very successful day. But that wasn't exactly the story the leaked documents would later seem to tell.
So the big question is, what really went on behind those closed doors? Well, one of our sources analyzed papers that were allegedly leaked from the State Department, and yeah, they paint a very, very different picture. And when you compare the official schedule to the reality, according to these reports, the disconnect is just, wow. That expanded working lunch, canceled. The hour-long press conference, slashed to just 7 minutes. And get this, no questions were allowed from the press. But the most critical point? The sources reported absolutely zero concessions from Putin.
Okay, so let's connect the dots here. You've got an economic policy that reportedly backfired, and you have a diplomatic meeting that, by these accounts, just fell apart. The sources we analyzed suggest this isn't some coincidence, but actually part of a discernible pattern.
So why did this happen on the diplomatic side? Well, analyst Tom Nichols suggests the core issue was a fundamental misunderstanding of geopolitics, approaching this incredibly complex international conflict like it was just a simple real estate deal.
And on the economic side, the sources point to a different but sort of related misunderstanding. This idea that you can just flip a switch on consumer behavior. The argument here is that once you push your customers away, they don't just automatically come back. That kind of damage can be permanent.
So when you piece it all together, the sources describe this really consistent 4-step pattern. Step 1, state a bold goal. Step 2, take some kind of disruptive action. But then comes Step 3, you face international backlash, which leads to Step 4, the original problem you were trying to fix actually gets worse.
And all of this leads to maybe the most important question of all. What are the long-term consequences of this stuff? When things go wrong, who actually pays the price?
Let's start with that diplomatic summit. The starkest reported outcome was a massive shift in U.S. policy. The New York Times reported that after that meeting, Trump told European leaders that he now favored giving up Ukrainian land to Russia, a huge concession.
And on the economic side, this quote really just cuts right to the chase. The argument being presented is that the real penalty for a worsening trade deficit isn't paid by the politicians. It's paid by ordinary people like you and me.
And that's really the final thought we're left with from these sources. When there's a huge disconnect between a policy's promise and its actual reality, who is it that's ultimately left to bear the cost?